I recently returned from a trip to Norway with my brothers and my sister. Our family heritage comes from that country and from the Netherlands. And in Norway, as we toured the various cities of Bergen and Bodø and Rune and many of the cities that are along the coast, I came in touch with the ancient Viking language. And this is a rune, and these are symbols directly related to ancient Germanic tribal languages. And the ones that really stood out to me in relation to ourselves and our careers are things like strength. This one is good health. This is warding off evil energy, evil magic. This one, success. There are so many of these symbols that have huge implications for us. And I think most important is this one, our health, and that is our physical and our emotional health. We cannot be at our best professionally and to fulfill the work that we are called to do in life if we don't have good health. Now, sometimes we are challenged by genetics. So there are certain aspects of our health that we have no control whatsoever over. But there are many things that we do have control over and that greatly influence our quality of life. To be at our best, we have to maintain five things that Stephen Covey used to talk about. All human beings need to eat, sleep, relax, connect, and there's another one I forget. But it's important, imperative that we do these things. And I think the biggest thing that I have learned with age, as I've thought about my health and thought about where I have control, where I don't have control, is eating and sleeping and rest. Those and the connection with other human beings, those things loom very large. Oh, move is the other one, movement, exercise. And so, with these things in mind, I want to ask a provocative question of you. And the question I'll ask is, which of those things is most in need of your attention right now? I've had jobs where I've been on the road a lot, and meals are irregular, sleeping schedules are irregular when you cross time zones. And there are some medications you can take and some meditation techniques and other things to help you manage those transitions. But if we are shortchanging ourselves on any of these categories over a prolonged period of time, we're not going to be at our best. And as I've grown older, and I'm now in the crescendo part of my career, my runway is more limited between now and the time I retire than it is for many of you. I think I've had to go back and reflect on behavioral changes that had to be enacted. When I was younger, for example, when I was younger, I used to just be able to exercise ad hoc. Well, let's see, I'm going to go out for the lunch hour, go for a jog, or after work, I'm going to go to the club, play some racquetball, or get my strength and fitness exercising in. And I was very irregular, but consistent in doing it. I probably managed to get my cardio done 5 of the 7 days every week. I wasn't as good at my strength exercising then, but I did manage to keep my heart healthy and to stay active. And that was through a combination of sporting activities and intentional workouts, which involved running, hiking, and cycling for the most part. And so when you think about your exercise component, we all have different physical capacities, but doctors would agree that the one thing that everyone should do if you are physically able is to walk. Walking is something you can do well into old age if we keep ourselves stretching and active. And that means moving around. Even if we are confined to an office or a work at home job where you have back to back to back meetings, you do have a minute or two to go up and down the stairs. You do have a minute or two to go out and get the mail. And so I think movement, which Stephen Covey talked about as one of those five essential things, is really critical to keep up on. And as I gotten older, I realized that I was not exercising as consistently as I was when I was younger. because I had increasing work responsibilities, leadership responsibilities that took me out of my home environment and brought about a more irregular schedule. And so I had to become intentional about scheduling my workouts. And I remember what an epiphany it was. It's like, wow, I have to start scheduling these now. Because if I don't do that, something else is going to preempt that time and it simply won't get done. So I would urge you to embrace, the regimen that Stephen Covey used to teach in his 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's the 30-10 rule. And I have personally practiced this and found it to be of great help in my life. Take 30 minutes at the start of every week. Most people do it on a Saturday or a Sunday, where you get to look ahead and you get to consider your relationships, the relationships that matter most to you. Now, mine are on a little sheet of paper that I not within reach right now, but it involves being a father, a husband, grandfather, business owner, um, spiritual advisor to others, and a friend. And so when you think about your most important roles, you take that 30 minutes every week to allocate or to schedule the time you need to nurture those relationships. That has been a very effective practice for me, and it's become a habit. And so if you're not currently in control of your week, some of us just look at the week from our work and home life. We kind of separate the two. But we need to look at it holistically because those relationships all relate to each other and they all demand some aspect of our time or a portion of our time. It's the one thing we have distributed equally among all the human family is we only get 24 hours in a day. And some of it we need to sleep, some of it we need to eat, and we need to move, and we need to take care of ourselves. And then the rest of the time is discretionary as far as where do we need to invest our time to nurture those relationships. So I would advocate that you can test out this principle. Do a look ahead at the week. Consider the roles that are most important to you. Most people have 5 to 7 roles that are critically important. And make sure that the time investment is commensurate to the importance of the role, which means something's going to be scheduled. And I found I have to schedule reminders to call my daughter on her birthday or to catch up with an old friend or to work out or to do whatever these core things are that matter. I have to start scheduling more of those. No, I've never been one, this is true confessions. I've never been one to deal with to-do lists. Those have never worked for me. But what is my to-do list is my calendar. It's the time I commit. Because if it goes on the calendar, it gets done. If it's not on the calendar, it gets forgotten or overlooked. And so that planning process is critically important as I schedule my week out. And I would urge those of you who are not doing that to test out that experiment. So that's the 30 part of the Stephen Covey equation. The 10 part is the 10-minute look back on each day. Some reflection time at the end of every day to say, did I get to everything that I intended to get to? If not, what might need to carry over to tomorrow's priorities? If you had a family emergency or something come up that preempts some things that you had planned to do and they didn't get done, how do we need to recover? How do we need to reschedule or, rebalance the rest of the week? So that regimen has been very effective for me, and I tend to resist structure. I like an emergent lifestyle. I don't like to be too constrained by schedules, but that has actually worked for me. And I would advocate it to you. So on the weekend, 30 minutes look ahead at your week, invest the time or schedule the time that you need to support all of the roles that are most important to you, and then 10 minutes each day as a look back to review what actually got done, what might have come up that becomes important to prioritize somewhere in the rest of the week, and how adjustments might need to be made. Because life happens and we can't predict everything or foresee everything. And so just keep your system somewhat flexible and reflective as we go forward in your life. So that allows me to actually address the 5 points of this equation about living a healthy, balanced, and a peak healthy lifestyle, which the Vikings understood, and they even had a symbol for it. And so I ask you again that question, what is most in need of your attention? Most brain scientists have proven that it's a myth that people can get by with 4 or 5 hours of sleep. Some of us pride ourselves on doing that, but there's very few people who actually can. Now, I'm not saying there don't exist outliers and people who can actually function very well on that amount of sleep. I cannot. Brain science would tell you that most people need between 7 and 9 hours. If you're a teenager growing, you might need closer to 9 because your bones are, growing and your body's building. Um, at my stage of life, I found that I can function really well with 7 hours of sleep. I prefer 7.5 or 8, but I can function reasonably well at 7. So that's always my target goal through my travels and everything I do. I don't always achieve it. As I've gotten older, I wake up more. It's harder to get good quality sleep. The pillow matters, the body positioning, your joints aching, all these things, come into play. But I always strive to get that 7 hours of sleep because I find I'm at my best when I get it. And so don't compromise your sleep. You compromise your sleep, it's been proven that it subtracts days, months, and years off your life. Be true to that commitment to yourself. Your body needs rest. It's where we rejuvenate and renew on our subconscious and all the physiological processes that we depend on to stay at our peak performance. Eating is also important. And as much as I tend to love my sweets and my desserts, and I do, I have a passion for sugar. Maybe it's a borderline addiction. I don't know. But I would say that I've had to even curtail that because as I've gotten older, my metabolism has slowed down and I can't work off all the calories I used to be able to work off with a higher metabolic burn. Just can't. And so these adjustments are, things that we have to make decisions around. Some people choose dieting as an approach. With me, it's more portion control and moderation. And I think it has to be balanced, obviously, with activity because if you're more active, then you earn the right to eat more calories, but you have to eat the right kind of calories, and we need our vitamins and our protein and all the other nutritional elements that go into, our daily regimen. So each of us has to work out a system, a personal system that allows us to fulfill all five of those equations. And we learned in the COVID crisis that connection is very important. Connection with other human beings. And some of us prefer, a wide variety of connections. I'm an extrovert, and that's more my network or my lifestyle is connecting with a lot of people. Introverts tend to prefer a few close contacts and close friends. So they don't have the wide net necessarily that I do, but they value the quality time, and it's really important to them. And I think quality time is defined by each individual. There's no one standard for that. But we do need connection with other human beings. And if that need is not met, we're not going to be at our best. So I would ask you, in conclusion with today's episode on Rob's Career Gems, to evaluate those five areas of your life. Am I eating well? Am I sleeping consistently and well? Am I moving or exercising or keeping an active lifestyle? Am I resting? Do I take my vacations and go off the grid or give my mind some downtime? For me, my happy place is fishing. Go to a lake, cast the line in, be out with nature, fresh air, sunshine, does wonders for me. And it's such a non-extroverted activity. It's really just a reflective, peaceful experience for me. And that's my rest. One of the places, one of the ways I get rest. And of course, you have to understand where your natural inclinations and interests are, and everything has to be balanced. We have work responsibilities and things that inconvenience us, but we cannot consistently shortchange those five things in our life and expect to be performing at our peak. We simply can't be at our best if we ignore those things. So I urge you to ignore them at your peril. Really take stock, take an inventory, find the one that is most in need of attention and work on that. I was counseling recently with a leader who was consistently shortchanging himself on sleep and came to find out that he was on the screen, he was online all the time. I said, well, what happens if you create a buffer between the time that you actually establish as your bedtime and to give your mind and your body time to just decompress from that online constant electronic stimulation. What would that do to your sleep? And he intentionally started like parking the phone an hour before bedtime. Brain scientists would say 2 hours is better, but he started having some buffer time. And he reported after a couple of weeks that the quality of his sleep was better just by that one act alone. So it is important in some ways to establish routines or habits around our sleeping, our eating. Have we optimized the times that we eat? The time that we eat matters. Like an 11 o'clock meal is going to affect how you sleep. And those calories, many of them will, become fat in our bodies because the body is the metabolism slowing down and it simply doesn't have need of all those calories that late. So these are things that matter: timing, quality of their food, nutrition. Are we balancing all the nutrients, all the carbohydrates and proteins and things that we need to sustain ourselves? So take an inventory, pick the one that you are most committed to working on, to making it better and more consistent. And then take your 30-10 rule. You're planning ahead on what you need to schedule, if it's a workout, if it's buffer time before you go to sleep, whatever that is. And then start working on that one thing. Don't feel guilty about the other things you're not doing. Just work on that one for a month and get it to a point where it's muscle memory, where it's habit. And you'll see some benefits from that. And then you can go on and tackle another one. So the goal here is not to make any of you feel guilty about the things you're not doing. It's basically to start with one and start to turn the tide on the quality of your life. And I think we will determine that, yes, this will get better if we are committed to that regimen. So that's my thought for today. Hope you enjoy, the others. I'm going to break out some of the other runes in some future podcasts so that we can consider the implications for our careers on those matters as well.